Assalamu alaikum, صباح الخير. Good morning everyone. كيفكم اليوم? How are you feeling? الحمد لله. مين أول مرة يجي Creative Mornings؟ ما شاء الله. طيب. مبادرة بدأت من 10 سنين في نيويورك. بدأتها تينا وانتشرت. الحين ما شاء الله في 200 Creative Mornings في العالم. لو أنتم مسافرين you can go on the website. أيوة. We want to reach 10,000, thank you Ahmed, on our Instagram. So follow Jeddah_CM and give us some support. طيب, so if you're traveling زي ما قلت لكم on the website you can تلاقوا Creative Mornings in other countries. أنا حضرت بس حقت لندن وكانت مرة حلوة. It's pretty much the same system. إيش كتبتوا على الساعس؟ Anyone? Yes? Optimism. Great. عبط. Humor. حلو. Creativity. Great. العقل. جميل. أفكار. حلو. في حد كتب كده؟ كوكتيل؟ إيش يعني؟ طيب. هذا الشهر واتر وفكرنا احنا والتيم. طيب قبل ما ابدا في التيم حابه بس اشكر our sponsors to Creative Mornings قائم عشان الرعاه. BMG القائم الرئيسي، عندنا السنبله سامر كردي الله يدير يعني الله يجزاه خير بيعطينا الفنيو هذا قاف لانش، نستلم كاب كوفي. كريم مين جاي اليوم مع كريم؟ اوكي. جداوي ظلال فلاورز يعطيهم الف عافيه. طيب الثيم مويه وما فكرنا انه مين حيكون متحدث او يقدر يقدم شيء من زاويه يعني مميزه في موضوع المويه. المويه مره موضوع يعني المويه حياه صح؟ فالمهم فكرنا في الدايفنج وبعدين جاء على بالنا قصه دكتور حسام جمعه. مين يعرف دكتور حسام من اول؟ اوكي. ما حطول. بنتي معانا. مرة من زمان. طيب أنا actually أعرف دكتور حسام من أيام الطفولة. ما أعرف أي سنة. 1990. 5 years ago. طيب دكتور حسام is a landscape architect and a city planner and much more than that. So I will give you the mic. تفضل معنا. Applause please.
أنا عندي هذا جهاز.
أوكي شغله. Perfect.
السلام عليكم. صوتي مسموع؟ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. I was asked by this very interesting group, Creative Morning, to give something about water. And I thought it's so easy. When Razan called me, I thought it's so easy. بيقول لي أعلى. And I left it until actually a week ago because I was a professor in university. I thought this is so easy. Okay, I will talk in English, in Arabic, in French, whatever you want, but you can stop me anytime if you want to ask about something. So, being a lecturer in the university for 20-something years, I thought will be so easy. It'll take me a couple of hours to talk about water. And then I discovered that this ended up to be the most difficult lectures or talk I will give in the last 20-something years. Because this is the youngest audience that I ever talked to. Usually I talk to engineers and architects and landscape architects and even my students يعني كلهم بشنبة. I have one of my great students here, Ammar Sabban, one of my favorite students. how to make a witty subject so dry. We talk about H2O and water, مش عارف إيش خصائص الwater. I thought, no, this will not be my talk, because you can go to Google and find out easily this information. So I'm not going to talk about dry science here. You are not going to listen to anything related to water from scientific point of view. Today, we'll talk about two parts. I know everybody here is really enthusiastic to know about the survival story. Usually, I don't talk about it in public. I only talk about it in mosques, and I have reason for that. But Razana tricked me into this. So, to have my dignity kept, I said, okay, I'm not gonna talk the full time about my survival story. I'm gonna also give you something about water you may not find in Google. What is my...
Come on. That's for us to play this.
Until this is ready, my two favorite things in life was actually my career, the landscape architecture. I was the first Saudi to have this degree. I was so fortunate and lucky when I enrolled in the university, King Abdulaziz University. Some group from Harvard University came and said, there is something called landscape architecture. Who want to enroll in that? So we didn't have Google at that time. Before most of the people here were born, I asked my professor, what is this landscape architecture? And turned out to be one of the most beautiful things I did in my life. Because the landscape architecture is marrying the physical world, what you see, the buildings, the concrete, the hard stuff, with the environment, with plants, with open spaces, with gardens. And then I went to my master in Harvard University and my PhD in University of Pennsylvania. I met the greatest mind ever in the field. And one of them, Professor Ayam Makar, wrote many books about environment and the subject. He told me the worst thing a landscape can do is a garden. Because you cannot go wrong in landscape architecture. You will always improve the environment. So, the first part, I'm going to talk about gardens. The first drop of water will be blue in design. And even I wear my blue top today. It's the only blue top I have. The second drop will be going to the blue. It's not so blue today, but it's the survival story. So, water for landscape architect is like the brick for the architect. We use it a lot in our design. However, water actually is very revered in all cultures. It's not only in Islam. You will find in Christianity, in Judaism, in Hinduism, in Shintoism, whatever a belief is, you will find water as part and parcel of their beliefs. If I'm going too fast, please slow me down. So, you find, for example, Shintoism think that the great oceans, this is where all the spirits are. The Hindus, they actually have pilgrims like us. They go to the river every year. And actually the number of people go to this pilgrimage is much, much higher than our Mecca pilgrims, but the only difference is that they do it extended through a month or so. We do it in 3 days, they do it through a month. Even the pharaohs, they had incredible stories about spirits and the water and the Nile, and even Egypt is the gift of Nile, it's said. Egypt is the gift of the Nile. And they had sacrificed brides, human beings. They sacrificed human beings just to satisfy the river. So the water is extremely important element in all culture. You name it, you will find water central to the belief. And it is the idea of purification and the idea of getting reborn again. Now, if this is a central belief in each culture, how this reflected into the design of gardens? So you will see incredible relation between the design of gardens and this belief, the river or the sacred water. For example, you find that the Japanese, they don't use water. They use pebbles, hasa, to create a sort of waves and water. And they really take incredible time and effort to make this feeling of islands, feeling of ocean. See, this guy has this machine, and around this is the island, and this is the ocean. And see, he every time he do this, he must make sure that no steps or no signs of his steps is shown. As you see, this is very delicate work. It takes months just to give the feeling of the people sitting here, the feeling of the ocean. This is how their translation of how they see water into their gardens. It is called the Zen Garden, if you heard about it. Zen Gardens. It's in the design, we call it the minimalist approach to design. How you can design a garden with the least amount of materials, which is here just stones and pebbles. You go to the French, who visited Versailles before? Versailles in France. Okay, so this is one of the most famous palaces in France, and the garden is very famous. But you can see the difference between how the French saw the use of water and how the Japanese saw the use of water. And even, they have incredible areas of water. They can actually, you can actually use boats. In some of these lakes they created. This is man-made. It's all man-made. This is the palace. Even though France didn't have that much water, but it's the extravaganza of using the water. It's controlling the environment, controlling the world. This is their idea. We can control the world. We have the power to control the world. So we can do that. The British, the English gardens, saw the use of water completely different. So the classic gardens, they used to do elements hidden in nature. But this is man-made. Again, this is all man-made, but the way is to imitate nature. So their idea of having water in their garden is that you feel you are not in a designed garden. It's not manipulated. You are in nature. So it's completely different than this French manipulated gardens. And the use of water is completely different in these two cases. So what about Islam as a religion or as a culture? The Arabs, the Muslims, how they use water. You will find endless ayat in the Quran talking about paradise. And this is how Muslims saw their gardens. They wanted paradise on earth. But there is a problem. Most of the localities where Muslims were located is in arid areas, like us, where water is very scarce. However, the description of Jannah is really very lush, very. ما لم تراه عين ولم تسمعه أذن. صحيح? So how can he translate this into the garden? You will find that this is you will find in Quran مثلا مثل الجنة التي وعد المتقون فيها أنهار من ماء غير آسن، يعني ما هو مالح، وأنهار من لبن لم يتغير طعم، وأنهر من خمر لذة للشاربين، وأنهر من عسل مصفى لهم فيها من كل الثمرات مغفرة من ربهم. كم نهر هنا? How many rivers in the description of the paradise? Yes, 4 rivers. Then in other ayah it says تجري من تحتها الأنهار. And even the same of the Prophet ﷺ, he also mentioned ومنها تفجر أنهار الجنة الأربعة ومن فوقها يكون العرش. So remember this, remember the 4 rivers, and remember تجري من تحتهم الأنهار. This is just taking examples. I can give you hundreds of examples about Jannah, even the description of trees. What kind of trees? Mostly fruits. Sidr was mentioned, tamr, al-fawakih, all mentioned in the Quran. I don't know what happened, I'm sorry. Yeah, here. So you find in the Islamic culture, when they're talking about gardens, this is a drawing, a very old drawing, showing that those guys are in the garden. You can see the 4 rivers, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 rivers, creating 4 gardens. You can see that the water actually is going into a pool, which means nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. He's trying to say, this water is so precious, nothing is lost. And you can see the birds, you can see even the trees, fruit trees. It's not just trees to look at. And you can see ashjar al-sidr. And you can see herbs. It's a very useful garden. It's not just a garden, because every drop of water is really precious. So it's not just a garden to look at, like, for example, the French. All these nice shapes and nice, beautiful manipulation of the space. Then when you go to the real garden, this is a drawing, but this is the real garden. This is one of the Persian Gardens, an example of Persian garden. You'll find again the 4 rivers. Even 1/4 is divided into 4 rivers, maybe without water, but again the idea goes into the very small details. The 4 rivers are always there. And even they call this in the middle Ain al-Kawthar, which is in the Quran. Another example in India, that was in Persia, this is in India. Taj Mahal, the most famous architecture beauty. But it was complemented with this garden. Again, this is the garden. You can see again and again and again. And if you see this example in Pakistan, in India, in the Mughal period, in Spain, everywhere, you will see this repeated once and once again. So prominent in the design of gardens and the use of water. You remember, تجري من تحتهم الأنهار. You can see they make a garden, and then they create a space in the middle of the lake, and they make water pass underneath, and they go and sit there. Literal translation, no creativity. It's creative, but it's no creativity. It's just a literal translation of the words of the Quran. Because they wanted to create the paradise into earth. So you can see the effort. The philosophy is really interesting. Because I don't have time, maybe you invite me one other day, I will talk for hours about this issue. So my dissertation, actually, my PhD dissertation is about environmental ethics in Islam. It was 500 pages. And I wanted to go to 1,000, but my professor said, I cannot read that. So the philosophy is really unbelievable. The idea is, when you are here in the best part of the garden, you are in the physical world, you are in the world, with all its troubles and problems and challenges and beauty and ugliness, whatever. You leave that and you walk into this As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. You remember? As-Sirat al-Mustaqim, everybody is going to pass through that, going to whoever, I don't know where, but inshallah, everybody here will be in Jannah. And you go to paradise, where rivers run and flow underneath. A very prominent philosophy that is repeated all the time. So far, I'm not using a lot of professional jargons, but I hope everybody here is following me. You want me to slow down, or is... Alhambra in Spain is one of the most beautiful examples that you can see, and still surviving until today, and actually it's making Spain a lot of money. When you go there and you see the beauty of this place, you will feel so proud. Somehow you will sit there and say, what a culture. How they created that in such an arid environment. Spain is an arid environment. Water is not really something that you find everywhere and anywhere. It's very difficult to find water in such places. Remember that at that time, they didn't have pumps, they didn't have any sort of mechanical equipment to bring water to these areas. However, somehow they were so creative, they invented a lot of machines to bring water. They use aqueducts, اللي هي القنوات المائية المرفوعة. Of course, they got it from the Romans, because the Romans also came up with some inventions, but they developed it. So we don't have time to talk about it today, but all I wanted to show here is that the palace is big and has different rooms and spaces. I want you to count with me, and here is creativity. How many use you can use water for? How many different uses you can use water for? Before I go to the slides, if you think about it, use water as a fountain. That's right? Or as a lake. Any other uses?
Energy.
Energy, okay. Swimming pools. For sport, yeah. For sport, okay.
Washing.
Huh? For washing, for cleanliness. That's it? Medicine, water for medicine. Okay. Aquarium. At that time, they didn't have the luxury really to create. But what I'm trying to say here is that still very limited use of water in gardens. In gardens, it will be either a lake, small pool, or a fountain. So count with me how many uses in this palace. Here, one of the courts in the palace, and you can see water here is used solely for reflection. Doesn't have any other function. And reflect what? The sky. Because the designer wanted always to connect to the sky, to God. Unfortunately, I don't have the slide which shows that everywhere in that palace, it's written everywhere. It's like, if you count it will be millions. مكتوب لا غالب إلا الله. Everywhere in that palace, لا غالب إلا الله. And nobody explained why the designer who did this incredible beauty of architecture and landscape architecture, why they chose only this word. We will see. Remember, لا غالب إلا الله. We will see why. So, also water is used to reflect the beauty of architecture. You can see the perfect double picture of the architecture. He's so proud of his architecture, also here. So he's reflecting his work, but making double the image. So whenever you see double image. And it's interesting sometimes to see an inverted image of something. It makes you think, it makes you really go and look at it on the other side. Here water is simply used for an eye inspiration and contemplation. So we put some aquarium, sort of aquarium, whoever said aquarium, some asmak zina. It's very nice to just look at this and be inspired. And some water lilies, just for the fun of it. Then you go to another court, which is called the Lion Court because of the fountain, very famous fountain, the Lion Court, or the Court of Lions, as they say. It's fountain where a sculpture of lions are carrying this fountain. But look at how he used the water here. This is where they sit, inside, and this is the outside. So water here simply used as a sense of connection. How to connect the outdoors with the indoors, which is very important for a designer. We teach that in design school. How to connect the outside of the house, outside of your project, to your inside of the project, which unfortunately you don't see in most of our modern design. Outside is completely different than the inside. You find the inside so beautiful, outside is so ugly. But this connection is lost. Here, he meant it to connect this fountain with this small bubbling fountain into the space where they are sitting. So they are always connecting these spaces together. And simply, in the most private areas, has a very nice small fountain, just a bubble. When he's sitting in his room, thinking, contemplating, it's helped him to relax. So it's another use of water. Water as a source of tranquility. Here, he used it in another space as a sense of direction. So you walk along that nice small channel until you reach your destination. When that channel stops, you know that you are there. Notice in all these uses how precious it is. Like someone is doing this. Remember the French and the English garden. Remember the huge difference between the use of water in these areas and the use of water here. It's very precious. He's trying to say, I know. Don't criticize me. I am spoiling a very precious element of life. I take care about it. I'm very cautious about it. Here, water as a source of happiness and visual pleasure. Remember, again, there's no machines to make this. But the designer understood how to use the levels from high mount to the wadi, to the lower area of the mosque, of the palace. He used this to create pressure, and from this pressure he created these beautiful fountains, which is unbelievably equal. If you see how the water meets here, it's unbelievably precise. Now, these modern machines cannot do this. It fails after 10 days. You find nozzles become salted, and one nozzle is working, the other is not. And that's why our problem with the Jeddah municipality was always, no, don't do fountains. Why? Because it will not work in another 10 days or so. And maintenance is so high. And this is surviving for centuries. Then the use of water as what we call in design white noise. White noise is a noise that you like. Noise that is not, it's used in a restaurant. When you go to the restaurant, they use music sometimes, because if you put the music off, you will hear everybody. And it's like ants talking to each other. So the white noise really makes you only listen to your partner. You don't get the other distracting voices from surrounding. So here, the designer, there is a sitting area here. This is where you sit and talk, and nobody walking in the garden will hear you or you hear them. Just a simple invention. Instead of making a screen, you make a white noise. This is very interesting. I didn't see this in any garden in the entire universe. This is just a simple stairs, but look how he created this channel of water along the rail of the stairs. And this is when in hot times, in hot and arid times of the year, the very warm days of the year, when you are moving from a space to another, you just want a source of cooling, and it may splash you actually. Every now and then you will get a splash, because the water is going fast, and he creates these corners. When it comes to the corner, it will splash. And of course, the obvious use of water as a purification and ablution. For the time of the prayer, they can use it for ablution. How many uses did you count?
A dozen.
And I'm very brief. There are 10 other uses, and my friend here is saying, so how much time do I still get? 7-8 minutes. So we're not going to talk about survival story. Ask them. Can I have more time, or do you want more time, or I stop here and go to something else? Okay. So I try to go faster. I really want to emphasize this area. This is very interesting. This is a mosque in Seville, in Spain again. And this is called the Court of Oranges, because the Muslim did not actually plant orange trees here, but when the Christian took over, they planted orange trees here. Before, you had other kind of trees. But I want to emphasize this area. See this interesting form here. Again, even the water from ablution, every drop was kept. Nothing was wasted. You can see that this fountain, the water that is coming out of this operation, whatever purification, ablution, is actually taken into these small channels. And I want to show you from up. If you look from up, you will see this intricate shape. So they use water as art. It's not just a simple channel underground. No, he wanted to show it to you and make an art out of it. It's so beautiful how they created this tile work with these channels all over the garden. And if are not used for ablution or for purification, it was used for irrigation. So the water coming from the mountain, it goes into this, and this goes to the tree. You can see how beautiful is the arrangement. Small rectangle to larger rectangles, and this going to very intricate maze of highly calculated equation how to make every tree getting what water they deserve. And so some trees need more water than others. Some plants need more water than others. And in the old time, see these bricks? These are movable. So simply he can take this out and the water will go to this tree. And put it back, it will go this way. Very simple, but very effective. Again, using, you can see the until today, this is used. And lately, they discovered huge two reservoirs underground. They didn't know from where this water coming from. And they discovered there was two huge reservoirs underground where every drop that is not used goes down to this reservoir. Unbelievable, really, use of water and how precious this water was. And you can see these are just a dozen of uses. There are other uses that I don't have time for it. And then when you go to the hadith and of the Prophet ﷺ and the fourth ayat, you will find endless advices and endless quotes about the use of water. The most famous is اقتصد ولو كنت على نهر جار. Be very careful using water even if you are sitting on a river. Remember, Rasulullah never saw a river before. There's no rivers in Al-Jazeera Arabiya. But he understood the concept of sustainability and all they are talking about now, and that is invented in the 20th century. This was invented 14,000 years ago. The concept of sustainability. Leave things for future generation. He wouldn't say Rasulullah هذا الكلام, or he wouldn't say إن قامت الساعة وبيد أحدكم فسيلة فإن استطاع أن لا يقوم حتى يغرسها فليفعل. Imagine القيامة قائمة وواحد في يده فسيلة وراح يزرعها. قيامة قائمة. اللي هي الأهوال يوم القيامة اللي سمعنا عنها. No, go and plant it. This is unbelievable meanings and philosophy in religion. In other religion they have the same, but again we don't have time. In the Judeo-Christian religion you will find similar ideas of taking care of nature as well. Thank you. ما في بسكوت ابو ولد؟
لا ما في
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا جزيلا.
طيب شكرا دكتور
شكرا لك والله
ولوقتك وللقصه ولسنة الكتاب اللي ان
شاء الله باذن الله.
read the book. Thank you for everyone. عادي Amin, where are you? Is Amin around? Okay, مو مشكلة. طيب, we're going to stay هنا another 30 minutes لأنه our tradition is دحين we do networking and more coffee, more nesting, more interactions. دكتور حسام معانا برضه, you can grab them, you can يعني إذا تحتاجوا